Hey everyone, welcome to Cloud Masters, a no-fluff cloud podcast giving you tangible tips for navigating the cloud. I'm your host, Matan Bordeaux, joined by my co-host, Sam Clark, and this is our second episode in a row for the data engineers out there. We're going to be exploring the impact that GenAI will have on data engineering. Today, we're joined by Knapp, CEO at Ascend.io, and Sascha Hayer, hope I'm saying that right. He's a senior ML specialist here at DoiT. Sean, why don't we kick this off by giving some context around, what does Ascend do? Why are we having you here to talk about GenAI and data engineering? And then we'll jump off from there.
Cool. Yeah. Ascend.io is a platform for automation of data engineering pipelines. In many ways, think of we do for data pipelines what Kubernetes does for container orchestration. We're a highly declarative, heavily automated approach to how you architect, design, and deploy data pipelines, where we can push a lot more of the classic developer and maintenance burden to automation. And so obviously, very excited as we move through those layers of automation to AI, as I think it's a pretty exciting domain.
And Sascha, you yourself, you're kind of like the resident GenAI expert. You've written a lot about it. You've appeared on podcasts. I think it was Stack Overflow's podcast. You talked about hallucinations. Are you working with with some of our customers on GenAI implementations already? Anything in the data engineering space?
Yeah, so the year 2003 was the year where I think the public perception of AI is substantially changed. And yeah, almost all of our companies now do at least something with generative AI or get started because it changed how they perceive AI, and it got the level for getting into AI got much lower with generative AI.
And to start, maybe Sean, you met recently with a bunch of data engineering leaders to talk about the impact of GenAI on their work. What does the future look like? What is the short term? What how can this be implemented? Long term, what does this look like? What can it disrupt? What were some of the takeaways out of that meeting of the minds that you had with them?
Yeah, I think the first takeaway is there's not yet consensus as far as the impact and timeline for impact. There's like massive spectrum of, hey, GenAI is literally going to be able to automate everything we do, to pretty skeptical, and we'll see how it plays out. So I think like in all classic early innings in a pretty pronounced hype cycle where there's a lot of substantial benefit too, there's just a high variability as to what people were looking at. So I think that's the first one, which is great. You'll have some people who are charging ahead and really, I think exploring new space and demonstrating the amazing capabilities, and then we'll have others sitting back and waiting and seeing. So I think that was one. The second probably big one that probably is really relevant is there was pretty uniform alignment around these incremental steps for GenAI in data engineering. And in particular, how do we use GenAI to simply offload the more rote manual tasks that engineering teams have to do? The classic joke that I always have is, look, like nobody likes to test or document their code. So that should be like the very first thing that we all go after is, we use GenAI for the basic pieces. We can get fancier and fancier. I think there's a lot of really amazing things we can do around helping this sort of citizen movement. We talked about citizen data scientists in the past. I think we're going to get more citizen data engineers as it move from the analytics engineering realm into the data engineering realm. I think GenAI can help with that as well. But I think we'll see these incremental steps play out in fast pace, but I think we'll move pretty systematically through those.
Can you actually explain to me what is a citizen data engineer? So I'm not too sure.
Oh, I don't think we have them yet, but I'd really love to see them. And I think I predicted that we're en route to doing that. And the term around citizen data scientists was coined a while back as we started to see some really interesting companies like Data Robot come in and democratize greater access to data science capabilities. I think we're going to see the same thing in data engineering. We've already seen the introduction of the analytics engineer, really born out from let's call it the DBT era, where we can make more code-based, SQL-based data pipelines in an ELT realm has brought people closer to the data engineering realm. I don't think all the way into true data engineering, where we have to deal with incrementality of data and smart partitioning and all the other fancy stuff. But I think we're getting closer and closer. And that's where I do think that there will be this new citizen data engineer, which we may not end up branding at that. It may be the further advancement of the analytics engineer. But I think that those two realms have the ability to very much combine with the assistance and the empowerment we get from GenAI.
So could this is an example. Marketing person as a citizen data engineer can say, hey, I'd like to take this Salesforce data I have and merge it with these other sources, with Google ads, LinkedIn ads, other sources. Maybe they use HubSpot as well. Is that kind of like what a future citizen data engineer might look like?
I think it's possible that would be on the fringe, I would say. What we're seeing is the sort of classic data engineering realm of really large volumes of data. You have complex pipelines where you have to do incremental data propagation and that partitioning. That part still tends to sit very much in the depth of the engineering organization. And the analytics engineering team tends to get already the more of the marketing data, the ads data, but not necessarily a lot of the system data, not necessarily a lot of the product data itself. So I think the advantage we're going to start to see is those analytics engineering users and engineers who tend to have more of a SQL skill set are going to be able to work their way upstream and tap into all the way the broader data sets and the more originating data sets, and even bridge into the realm of Python transformations, which I do think are necessary for a number of different workloads, as well as the more sophisticated optimizations you can do around data pipelines, which today I think the analytics realm we're just scratching the surface of.
Now I wonder, like for me, I think what ChatGPT was released to the public in November of last year, 2022, something like that. It took me about 10 months, 9 months to start adopting it and using it for my own work. And so I wonder whether it's for the citizen data engineer of the future or for data engineers today, people who are already data engineers, is there, as far as adoption, like, is that also, do you see that as a hurdle? Are teams, are you seeing it internally as a hurdle with the data engineering leaders you talk to today? Are they seeing that as a hurdle in terms of just, getting them to adopt, getting them to use it, and then getting them interested in using it, as part of their work? Because for me, my own it kind of like slowly built up to now. It's like doing those tasks that I don't really like doing myself, allowing me to be more creative and remove writer's block, things like that.
Totally. Um, I think there's going to be a sort of gradual process for everybody. I remember back when ChatGPT was released too, and you're in the 3.5 era, and at that point in time, it was to the point where you could see the potential, and you're like, this thing's pretty cool, but it's still like pretty awkward too at the same time. And then GPT-4 came out, and you're like, holy shit, like I get it. All right, now it's happening. And it's not perfect yet, but we'll keep seeing it progress. And there's now multiple data points, and we can plot the trajectory. But I think the same thing is going to happen in the data engineering realm. For example, everybody at Ascend already has Copilot or GitHub Copilot or Copilot X installed into their environments. We already have pretty uniformly adopted GenAI in our day-to-day operations. I even have literally quick commands where I can just like /X on a command, and I actually have all that programmed into ChatGPT, which is really fun. You can program different prompts in this way. But when it comes to data engineering itself, I think we're going to see folks just start to go along the path of, hey, can it document for me? Can it suggest tests for me, right? Every time you write a SQL-based transform, you are making assumptions about the data that is coming in. You're making assumptions around non-null values, or that is, the percentage column is literally between 0 and 1, or 0 and 100. And so using GenAI to do things like suggest data quality checks in line as part of your pipeline runs. The other area where we are seeing a lot of folks, and I think this is a really cool space, is in migration. We see in the data realm, so many companies have such painful, bespoke, old platforms that they would love to migrate, that they're like those, house of cards that you're like, just nobody sneeze near this thing, and we really hope it survives until it's the next guy's problem. And you see this all over the place. So I think there's a ton of opportunity to take these classic data pipelines that are built, these classic ETL systems that were built on legacy technologies, and accelerate the migration to modern platforms, which I think is awesome, because nobody wants to migrate systems. Like, that's painful, but if you can use GenAI to really help you do that and get into a better world, you'll find most teams are really bullish on that.
I think about just, I was playing Jenga earlier, and I just think of that when you describe those old antiquated systems, like one wrong block pull, then you're screwed.
Yeah, totally. So you're just hoping it's, you're on vacation when somebody else does it, and then they got to go deal with the pager and the on-call and so on.
I guess, this sort of a system, or this sort of an ability to describe code or to comment on code and to help with the migrations and that sort of stuff, we're never going to be able to get rid of the people, because we can't get that GenAI model inside a developer's head to figure out not what he's doing, but why he did it, right? He or she, I should say. Because obviously development is an art at some point, and there are very creative ways to get around any problem. Sometimes, let's give the developers here the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes those development ideas are not so clever. So we'd love to know, what the hell were they thinking, right?
Yeah, and imagine if you could spend all of your intellectual horsepower on generating the ideas and then contributing why you wanted to do that. If we think super philosophically, and this applies not just to data engineering, but I think software engineering, marketing, vast majority of frankly, white collar jobs, is we basically do the same cycle in our job, like all day long, which is we ideate, we create, and then we refine and curate. Most of the work that we do in the middle of create, I would contend, is the lowest clock speed stuff we do, because we're limited by the laws of physics, how fast our mouths can move, how fast our hands can type, but our brains are working way faster. You're trying to get the stuff on digital paper, so to speak. And that the promise, I think, of GenAI, especially in the current era, is how do we truncate down that timeline so we can go faster? We can spend more of our mental cycles on the ideation and the refinement pieces, which is the why we're doing what we're doing and what we want to do to begin with. And the rest of it, I would love it if I could take like that middle portion and cram that down to 2% of my day. I would be one, I'd be so amazingly productive, and two, that would make me so amazingly happy as a result. And so that's where I see the benefit today.
It sounds amazing. I don't know about an AI brain interface, but I've seen the so-called AI built into my Roomba, and it can't navigate my floor. So there's no way someone's getting inside my head with these things.
I literally had to turn my Roomba off right before the podcast, because like banging against my office door, so I'm trying to get in.
Yeah, there's some fun out there about AI taking over the world. I don't think we're anywhere near that at this stage.
Sascha, you talked a lot about hallucinations with GenAI LLM models or large language models. I'm wondering if you've seen it already, or what would that look like in the world of data engineering, given the context of like what Sean was talking about, how it's already being used today in the world of data engineering for testing and whatnot. And what should data engineers need to be aware of? Or maybe you're just thinking out loud, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that. Maybe I'd even just start off, in case someone's not aware, what are hallucinations?
Yeah, so hallucinations are if your large language model like Palm or ChatGPT or GPT is making up stuff which is actually factually not true. That's hallucination. So getting basically wrong information out of the model. This is more or less painful depending on your use case. And yeah, some ways to circumvent this is by using by giving the model more information, not only the data the model was trained on, but also giving him some context on the data you're operating on. So if you integrate your data, your company data, into your large language model, or if you work on data which the model wasn't trained on, you need to somehow give the model this information. Otherwise, it will not be able to answer right or correct answers. And this is sometimes, depending on use case, quite a lot of data. And getting this data right into your large language models, for that you need proper data pipelines. So, for example, if you do something like RAG, so retrieval augmented generation, enriching the context of the model, I think this is where we see a major shift in how you are processing your data. So we went from this previously, before the rise of large language models, we did a lot of data collection. We collect a lot of data to train the models, and now we are switching basically from getting training data, we go directly into prompt engineering, and that's the biggest shift. So we have a massively decreased demand on labeled data sets, replacing some of the traditional data preprocessing methods with feature engineering with large language models, like Sean said. And we're also shifting into real-time data ingestions to avoid those hallucinations.
Are people already using it today to annotate data as well?
Yes, absolutely. Just a few days ago, I saw a nice benchmark, a nice research paper where someone compared already labeled data sets, and they used large language models to label them again. And they did some comparison, and they almost had the same or sometimes even better results than the manual labeled data sets. So this is working really well for a lot of types of data. Obviously, there are more specialized data sets where you still need hand-labeled data, but it's already a good starting point.
We're not talking about the Silicon Valley episode with hot dog, not hot dog, right? It's a little bit more advanced than that. But
if I just look at, I'm waiting for approval to get ChatGPT 4, and I've already heard it's like, I don't know, don't take me literally, Sascha, but I heard it's like 1,000,000 times better than 3.5. And just thinking about how, like, we're not even a year in, how fast, what is the term, AI computation? It's not Moore's law computation, it's AI computation. How much is just advanced in less than a year? What was I remember a statistic being brought up, Sean, when you were talking about this with Peter.
Yeah, they talk about the double life. Basically, what's the period of time that it takes for the computational power to roughly double? And we're all familiar with Moore's law, but the amazing part of this with AI computational power, it is currently doubling, and has been actually for about the last decade, doubling every 3.4 months. So if we think about that, and you expand that out to 2 years, so that's 7 doubling cycles for the math nerds in the room. That's 128. Technically, it works out to be about 133x of increase in computational power just over the course of 2 years. We think of like how fast this is going to change on us. I mean, just think of, if we follow Moore's law and you try and track that same thing, we're looking at, basically when, shortly after the iPhone was released, as far as like that rate of change, and now take that and compress it into the next 2 years.
Maybe in a year, Sam's Roomba will stop. Will actually recognize all of his walls and whatnot.
But that's
possible.
The idea of the Roomba is to me, I think, one of the interesting things about GenAI at the minute. Everybody that I've spoken to, whether it's a customer or a partner or whatever, everybody's trying to figure out how to add GenAI to their product. And a Roomba might be a bad example, might be a good example, but the part of me that I'm not so creative, and I'm struggling to get past. I can see GenAI being great for writing tools, right? So if I'm trying to compose an email or a presentation or a document, whatever, give me a prompt, like you said, Matan, get past the writer's block. I've seen obviously the demonstrations of image generation. Put a put a Norse god on a unicorn or whatever and make a pretty picture from that. But where else are we going with GenAI? What are the areas that you're seeing as the hot things customers are trying to work on?
Yeah, I see a lot of use cases where you operate or where you need to summarize documents. This could be either a telephone conference, or you have some notes, companies doing notes of employees for the yearly review, and you want to have some summarization or some key takeaways from those notes. This is quite commonly used, but there are basically no limitations, right? Everything which you're doing in your company, which is currently somehow taking your time, you could think of automating. Maybe this could be a great way to start, but not necessarily everything needs to be automated. So it needs to have a good use case, and then you can think of automating it. So Sam, if you have something which you are doing every day and it's wasting a lot of time of you, then just give it a try and try to automate it.
I don't want to say wasting time. I mean, it's mostly customer-facing work, so it's definitely not wasting. But definitely, I mean, I've seen similar to what you say with the summarizing and things like sentiment analysis. I've seen some cool ideas there where we can, handing over a support ticket from one engineer to another and getting a quick summation of where we're at, what we're doing, before you then go through the full details and look at every trace route or whatever was provided. I can certainly see that. I'd really like it to get to the next level where it can also look at the log file and tell me where the problem is. But I think we're a little way off that without enough data sets.
I think we're getting closer to it. We've been doing a lot of work with GPT-4 models. I think that it is significantly more advanced than what we've seen in the at least in the data engineering realm and data pipelines in particular. Oftentimes you see in a data pipeline, you start with a bunch of source data, and then you create a bunch of different cascading transforms. Some are materialized, some are not. And then, we see across our customers, you end up with these tens of thousands of different transformations, all hooked across these DAGs, like interwoven. And when you start to think of the power of Gen AI is, well, one, what happens when somebody has a new thing they want, like a new question? If you could actually not only vocalize that, but then start to use Gen AI that was trained on all of the other data sets and all the other code and logic, would it actually then hook into the right data pipeline at the right stage of that transformation so you're not creating a whole new pipeline that's replicating all of the same workload? And when we think about it from a sheer ability to optimize all of this complex data movement through a business is pretty compelling. You can get faster data pipelines that actually burn less money overall, and the team can do it more safely as well. And so I think there's a lot of potential there. And this is, I think, part of the capability we see where the skill sets can shift left. And you get the data analyst can become an analytics engineer. The analytics engineer can do data engineering because we can use Gen AI to actually help them move further upstream in that data lifecycle.
I mean, this is very low tech compared to everything that all the use cases you just threw out there. But I had to, when you click on an image in a blog post and it pops up, but doesn't open in a new window. Apparently it's called Foobox or something, or like a light box. On a Sunday, because in Israel we work on Sundays, I wanted to publish a blog post, but our web developer who would help me write the code or who would help me figure out why it's not working, he's obviously not working. So I had ChatGPT I asked it, what's wrong with this code? And it spotted the problem. It was using the wrong kind of comma, I guess, or the wrong quotations. And so it's kind of there with at least HTML. It helped me out. I use that now. I don't have to rely on this web developer to help write the code. But you mentioned, I remember you mentioning in your conversations with Paul, product marketing at Ascend, around the context of this AI computation doubling every 3 or so months, you mentioned, I think it was around this context, you mentioned kind of hyper verticalized focuses in Gen AI, smoothing this out. Could you explain what that, I wasn't sure what that meant, but also like in the context of data engineering, what does that look like?
Yeah, like right now, if we look at it, the capabilities are just really raw. Like, it's hey, you get Bard and a couple of other offerings that like OpenAI's APIs, but we're not seeing purpose-built GenAI offerings yet. Well, and I think it's coming fast. We're seeing most SaaS products are starting to integrate it. All the SaaS products we use on a daily basis now at least are, they have something in there. Whether or not it's helpful yet, I think it's to varied degrees of success, but it will get there regardless. And so I think that's where the initial excitement of GenAI is going to solve all of these sort of issues will go into you're going to need your verticalized platform provider is probably going to solve a lot of the common patterns for you. So for in the Ascend realm, us integrating GenAI into our product so we can help you better document, test, monitor your pipelines rather than you having to hook into the OpenAI APIs and implement all that yourself. These are all highly repeatable patterns. So I think that there's a material burden and responsibility, not burden, I should say responsibility put on SaaS providers for your product to integrate GenAI so people can take advantage of those capabilities. And then I think the more bespoke business specific applications of GenAI when as a business you're creating your own product, like as Sascha was talking about labeling your own content and sentiment of data coming in from your users, for example. That would be a great example of where you won't get as verticalized of GenAI solutions. And that's where you should put your intellectual horsepower internally to make sure that you can really take advantage of GenAI.
I see the same thing kind of happening, or it's been discussed, like the industry clouds, SAP and Oracle, building industry-specific solutions for like healthcare and other industries that maybe are slower to adopt the cloud to make it more, because I think the assumption in the beginning was that let's just give them this empty canvas and let them build whatever they want to build, but having something that's already that's purpose-built, as you said, actually increases the adoption. And you see like companies like Oracle that are kind of having a resurgence in SAP as well, and getting these healthcare providers and these more slower to adopt industries to use their products.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think they're already quite dominant for these industries in the non-cloud realm, if you will. And I think then helping to facilitate and that migration into the modern era, these companies are very well positioned to do so.
So it sounds like if you want to build an industry-specific solution, just identify some repeatable patterns, repeatable tasks that happen in this realm, like what you defined with data engineering, for instance, with labeling and tagging, and write the right prompts to automate that and offer that as a solution, as a way like, hey, instead of having to do this yourself.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing a lot of I'm seeing a lot of these vertical companies and how do you automate and use GenAI for market research to sales outbound that an SDR would do, to the entire sales process, to monitoring and auditing of the sales pipeline itself, to your customer health. And so we're seeing a bunch of, if you just traverse the customer life cycle and the roles that are associated with it, I think we're seeing a lot of these vertical solutions starting to emerge across that. And those are the common repeatable patterns that every, at least enterprise business has. And so I think we'll see the same thing start to emerge around data science to analytics to data engineering as well.
Sascha, I'm curious, besides Midjourney, because I know you use Midjourney, I do too, but how are you using GenAI in your work? You're doing lots of ML work with customers, maybe stuff on the side as well.
Yeah, so I do a lot on the side because I try a lot, I experiment a lot. I have a bunch of websites fully automatically running on Generative AI. So I have a website which creates recipes and a website which writes about fishing. So it's just stuff I try out to see how well things work and how you can put things together. But yeah, on a daily work basis on my side, I write a lot of articles and I use it to proofreading. So I just place my content there, and similar like Grammarly, but just I nowadays use ChatGPT, paste it there and get some nice recommendations and suggestions there.
I'm wondering, so Sean, you already hinted kind of at how Ascend is looking to implement GenAI today. I'm wondering, from your perspective in the future, what does the data pipeline automation system of the future look like? How do we get there? What's needed? Maybe 2 years from now, what are we going to see? Without sharing your roadmap.
Yeah. I think we've been spending a lot of time, to be honest, thinking about this right now. I think the data engineering space in general is in this interesting turning point. There's a longer conversation as to, we had this hyper overfunded space for the last 3-4 years, which means you have a ton of companies. Like, there's so many freaking companies all over the landscape. You can't even fit them on a slide anymore about the market landscape. And there's a lot of, I think, a lot of predictions around the consolidation of this space, which very much makes sense. And the reason why I think that is so important, especially for the automated future for data pipelines and data engineering, is you can't automate anything unless there's shared metadata. If all of these things are operating in complete isolation from each other, it's really hard to then automate the handoff from one system to the next system to the next system. I think this is why technologies like Kubernetes in the container orchestration space and more in the infrastructure space have been so wildly successful. Is, in short, they created an entire metadata and automation layer. All of these other really advanced capabilities can plug into as different modules in essence. And the value of that is they all are still connecting to that same system, a metadata bus, if you will. And we don't have that today in the data engineering landscape. Today, it is I have a data transformation tool and a data orchestration tool and some ingestion tools and observability tools. And if those things are ever going to talk to each other, it's because somebody took the time to try and connect them and loosely connect some metadata between those. But it's hodgepodgey at best. And so I think you can't really get into this whole really advanced Gen AI world if there's just no actual common metadata. So I don't want to say metadata. Yeah, I want to say like a metadata platform, because that's always been this classic like catalog-y thing of I just need to store data, versus like a metadata bus is I need an active system that is actively collecting metadata, that is actively has all these other elements contributing and consuming that metadata. That I think is the fundamental difference, is the sheer active nature of this metadata and automation platform.
I think you see this happening also in the space of understanding cloud costs. Google announced a FinOps initiative, right, Sam? And there's kind of multiple attempts. There's more than one attempt in the FinOps space to try to the race to be the de facto like standard. What do you even call it, Sam? The standard.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one at the moment is they're trying to normalize all the data to a single format, so that everybody uses the same columns, the same names, the same descriptions, so that all the third parties, all the customers out there that are multi-cloud can then take advantage of some sort of normalization. And it's a story as old as time, isn't it? Going back to things like medical research and everything else. If companies would share, then things would move a lot faster. But if companies would share, then maybe they're not going to make as much money. So they have to balance these requirements for progress versus their own profits and bottom lines, right? I'm hopeful, and I love the open source community and all that stuff. But capitalism's alive and well, so we'll see how we go.
Let's see. Is there, Sean, Sascha, is there anything that we haven't touched upon yet before we sign off that I'd like to call out in terms of this topic, I guess? GenAI, data engineering, anything interesting?
I had a question for Sascha, because you're spending a lot of time with customers on this too, and we hear bits and pieces of this, but what are you hearing from clients right now around data sensitivity? Because right now, this is one of the things that came up in our exec group on it, was this whole pullback of like, whoa, like I'm going to be sending a bunch of data into, everybody's mental model right now is ChatGPT. So their notion is like, so I'm going to have a bunch of people just uploading a bunch of my shit to ChatGPT, and it's going to learn on it, and we might lose trade secrets. But what are you seeing outside of the intern uploading a bunch of proprietary things to ChatGPT? What are people actually doing, and how are they tackling the data sensitivity problems with Gen AI?
Yeah, data sensitivity is indeed a big topic, and yeah, it all started because of ChatGPT, OpenAI, how they handle the data. They initially used it they still use it for retraining and fine tuning their models. So everything to use sent to OpenAI, via ChatGPT at least, it's still used for training, and they can get access to your data. That's a big issue for a lot of companies, because usually you work on some kind of sensitive data, even if it's only your internal company data, that's probably still sensitive. So that's where AWS and Google usually come into place, at least now, since they also offer their large language model offering, because they promise you they have it in their terms, they have it in their contracts, that they're not using your data to fine-tune their models, they're not using your data to do anything with it. It's like any kind of data you have on the cloud. It's your data, it's usually secured on the cloud, and they are now doing the same like the data like in your database. It's the same with large language models if you have it on Google or AWS. So this is, I think, the big difference, how initially OpenAI approached this and how the cloud provider approached this.
One interesting point on that one, I'm not sure if it's still an issue, but there used to be a separate opt-out for AWS if you didn't want your at least usage patterns used by them to see how we're using the AI and ML services. There's actually a separate, and you need to create an external support ticket or something. You can't, there's no way to just do it in the console to click it used to be, it probably is now. But I remember a while back, everybody had this same concern. I've just done a quick Google. It is now possible just to do it via an API call. But you had to manually opt out of the AI and ML analytics.
Data privacy should be always opt-in if you want
Absolutely. And this wasn't, just to make this very clear, this wasn't AWS accessing your actual data. It was more about the way you were using the AI. So the prompts maybe, but certainly not your whatever data you've uploaded.
There was back then a couple of years ago a different offering on the Google side where you actually got a reduced pricing, where you got a better pricing if you actually share your data with Google. So that was actually quite good, because if you have data you are able to share, you can save money and you can help Google optimizing the models.
Yeah, nice.
There you go. That's capitalism taking hold on the data sharing piece too.
There you go.
No, exactly.
And so so customers are fine once the cloud providers are saying, "Don't worry, go through us," and we're not reading anything, we're not saving or looking into anything. Usually alleviates.
Yeah, they now have it in their terms of contracts. After Google Next, they decided they put it into terms of contract, terms of service, and now it's in a written form. You can give it to your lawyer and your company, and then all are happy.
So that answers your question, Sean?
Yeah, it does, which is in line with what I was anticipating. What we would see more too is, which is great, because I think then that actually accelerates the adoption. Two is, I think a lot of CIOs and CDOs were just sitting back waiting for, somebody's got to promise you're not going to use my data to somebody else's benefit.
Yeah, because they've all read enough stories of exactly what you mentioned, where the interns uploaded something secret and then they've seen that appearing in someone else's recommendations, right? So
yep, exactly.
Oh boy. Anything else? We've had a pretty good discussion. Just wanted to make sure we touch upon everything before we sign off here, but I learned a bunch already. Sascha, Sean.
I think the biggest win for us all, for all the companies on this planet, is actually companies like OpenAI, AWS, and Google, who actually be able to train those large language models, which costs millions of dollars. No small company like we are would we never be able to put this amount of money and effort into those models, and we wouldn't be here where we are today without those large companies.
Capitalism, baby.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
those large companies, you could also argue, are sponsoring the SAG-AFTRA strike at the minute, with all the writers going out on strike. So let's not go into that. And maybe you need to cut that, Chris, one. But anyway.
Well, the strike might be over, but I heard they're coming to a resolution soon with that
so
stuff.
I've actually, so I don't know if you guys follow any of the late night shows in the US, but there's a few of the late night hosts have come together to do their own podcast. We shouldn't be advertising Strike Force 5 as the competition or anything, but like Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert and all that coming together, and they keep talking about what AI can do, and they keep using it on their podcast to like fake someone else's voice or something like this. So they'll be doing Ryan Reynolds because he's one of the advertisers there. And sort of halfway through, you can almost hear the cog clicking in their head going, this is exactly what the strike's against. We shouldn't be supporting this.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's an advanced negotiating tactic.
Indeed.
They're going very meta with that.
Yeah.
Although I don't think they can create good. I don't know if they can create good movies, but I don't know. Some of this stuff is also for like the lowest common denominator content. Like,
it's the ability, right? I mean, if you look at if you go into Netflix or Amazon Video or something like that, and you look at the list of Christmas rom-coms, right? They all follow the exact same pattern, right? So you could probably get a script similarly good out of ChatGPT. Try and write a Seinfeld episode with, some more intricate and multi-layered jokes and stuff like that. You're going to struggle, but some basic stuff. And I have tried the rom-com episode.
All the rom-coms, even before ChatGPT and AI, we're using the same movie poster concept where it's the guy and the girl leaning against each other like this. They can't stand each other, but here they are.
Yeah. It was face-to-face or back-to-back, and that told you the story, whether they were going to have a fight or not.
Same thing with every Lifetime Christmas movie, red and green.
There you go.
Same movie posters. But anyways, Sean, Sascha, thanks for joining. I think we're ready to wrap this up. Pleasure talking and learning from both of you guys. And we've been doing a lot of stuff with Ascend lately, so I don't think this will be the last. We had John on Friday to talk about data pipeline transgressions. I think that's what it was.
Cool.
Things that are costing you money with your data pipelines that you shouldn't be doing. So I'm sure we'll collaborate more. But for those who are listening, hope you learned something new. Stay tuned for the next episode. I don't think it's data engineering related. I think it's Kubernetes, but you'll see on the list.
We're still here and haven't been replaced by ChatGPT.
Yeah. All right.
Not yet.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See ya. And we're done.
Cloudmasters is a DoiT multimedia production, hosted by Matan Bordo, a product marketing manager at DoiT, and Sam Clark, a technical account manager at DoiT. Our guests this week were Sean Knapp, founder and CEO of Ascend.io, and Sascha Hayer, a senior cloud architect at DoiT. Editing and production of Cloudmasters is handled by me, Crispin Stanback. To hear more episodes of Cloudmasters and learn more about DoiT, visit doit.com.